as summer is winding down. Some places summer is almost down as the kids, I guess, go back to school this week in a number of places. We don't really consider summer officially over until Labor Day, at least around here. But I know for a number of you it's over, but I trust everyone had a good weekend. Lots of economic news coming out this week. It's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. And by the way, the Dow had a bit of a rough week last week, as you all know. By now, I would assume on Friday, the Dow closed down 72. And on the week, the Dow down, I won't say significantly, but, was in fact down, close to 1.5%. So we'll see how this week goes. Earnings news, it's just about over. This week we'll still get some earnings news that'll be coming out, but we'll see how that shapes up by the end of this week. The S&P last week down for the week 1.1%, and the NASDAQ was only down 0.8%, but all negative territory. And right now the Dow futures are looking like they're going to open negative. We'll see how that goes. Very interesting. One number that's coming out today, one of my favorite things because it's so comical, but the Treasury Department is putting out the Treasury budget. Do they have to use the word budget? I didn't think we did budgets. Matter of fact, we haven't done a budget in 4 or 5 years, right? But they're still calling it a budget. I think it's not a budget. It's basically what they think they're going to spend compared to what they've really spent. I guess that's a budget now. So for all of you folks that, just spend money and you hope you have enough at the end of the month, you got a budget according to the Treasury Department. So that's good. You've budgeted your money. If you just spend, take a look at the end of the month, see how much you have left over. That's your budget. So I think it's kind of comical that they still include the word budget in any number that the government might do, since the government's been operating without a budget now for 4 years. Doesn't look like there's any end in sight to that. The Republicans don't care. They love it. They don't have to be held accountable. They pretend like they care. And the House of Representatives, of course, is under legal obligation to approve a budget, which they do. Send it on to the Senate, and it doesn't get a whole lot. It's interesting because last time we had this debate, we saw conservatives. This is a surprise, compromising, right? Well, one of the reasons they compromised because Harry Reid promised he would have a budget voted on and approved. Now, of course, the conservatives don't want to hold his feet to the fire on that because deep down inside they think it's the greatest thing in the world because they can blame it on Harry Reid, yet they don't have to be responsible. They could say, well, we can't help it. Harry Reid's never going to put it forth. But we don't have to budget. But that's coming out today at 2 o'clock for anybody interested. I am, just because I want to see how ridiculous it is. Anyway, tomorrow, retail sales numbers come out. Export prices come out. Import prices come out. That's import prices not including oil. So that will be out tomorrow. Business inventory is also coming out tomorrow. So tomorrow, busy day. Wednesday, producer price index numbers come out, something we've got to pay close attention to. That is coming out on Wednesday. That's coming out Wednesday morning. Then we will get also on Wednesday, later in the morning, crude inventories, and I'm very curious to see what crude inventories look like. But that'll be out tomorrow. Right now, by the way, folks, crude oil is up 105.67. It is down. It's on its way down, but it's at 105.67 right now. Natural gas sitting at about 3.31. That is up slightly. I think the inventories number should help to push crude down. But no matter what crude does, I would suspect, based on some of the numbers that we have seen all summer long, I would suspect that we can almost count on gasoline prices starting to edge down, I would think, because we've got a glut in oil. We've got refinery capacity, plenty of capacity, and we've got, starting next month, the switch over to the winter blend, which is less expensive to refine for gasoline. So you've got a combination. Oh, and summer's over. So the driving season is coming to an end. We've got winter fuel prices coming into play. And we've got high inventories in general on top of that. So you have to expect that we're going to see gasoline prices start to come down a little bit. I hope that is true. If it isn't, I'll be very surprised. On Thursday, we have, of course, initial job claims. Thursday's a very, very busy day. Thursday, we've got initial jobs claims coming out. We've got consumer price indexes, what we are spending for goods, and we've got two very interesting numbers coming out with the Empire Manufacturing Index and the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index, both coming out on Thursday. So that's pretty much going to cover the whole Northeast corridor with those two numbers. So we'll be interested to see what that is. And natural gas inventories comes out along with housing market index. On Friday, we've got housing starts, building permits, productivity, labor unit cost, all those very good numbers. And then to top it off, we're going to have Michigan consumer sentiment numbers, which is expected to stay the same. So lots of economic news coming out. The big economic news is going to be, is the Fed going to taper or not? And that's still going to be in the news. That is what was in the news last week primarily. There's a lot of news coming out of Asia and Japan and other things, but that is going to be primarily what's in the news. Are you wondering who we're going to highlight this week? Last week, of course, on our bad for the economy, bad for Americans watch, we pointed out Mark Pryor, senator for Arkansas. Apparently, I was getting hammered in the liberal press in Arkansas last week, which is fine. We called him out for his vote on Obamacare, as if we should just let it go by and forget. Moderate Democrats are retreating from Obamacare. He's still supporting it. We called him out on it. And he's going to have a very difficult time. Many of you called and emailed his office. And I'm going to give you the next person here in a few minutes who we are highlighting this week, that we are going to be hammering for his support or lack of support for conservatives in defunding Obamacare and, again, not caring about the nation. And we are going to call someone out on that here in a little bit. We will be contacting, as we did last week, contacting their office for comment, or happy to have them on the program. So we will be talking about this person all week. I'll get to that in a minute. U.S. stock futures, as I said, are down. Disappointing growth coming out of Japan. Lower summer volumes than had been anticipated. So that is not good news, at least for the Japanese market, after they spent so much time trashing their currency with a massive amount of quantitative easing following the Federal Reserve's lead. Remember, I talked about it at length as it related to the so-called currency war that could be starting as a result of that. The IMF and others put out notices to the press, and please don't call this a currency war. But that's, in fact, what it was. Well, guess what? It doesn't look like it worked too well. That's coming out of Japan. Oil is pretty much flat, as I talked about earlier, and that's primary. And by the way, the dollar is gaining as Japan's GDP decreases. So as the dollar So what is it? Is the dollar increasing? Is the dollar gaining? Or is the dollar gaining because the currency by which it's measured against, one of the currencies, is devaluing? Now, what do you think it is? We know what it is. But the headline is the dollar gains. Yeah, okay. Well, the dollar gains, I guess, if you're the best-looking horse in the glue factory, I guess you're better off than everybody else. But that's what they consider gains. I talked about this as well earlier, just mentioned, an earnings season is about over, and it's pretty much in the can, and stocks are near record highs, right? So it is very interesting that everybody's turning their attention to the economy. Really? We're going to talk about the fundamentals of the economy? I don't know if they're going to be talking about it, but it does indicate that many are turning their attention towards the economy. And the economy, many are saying, and which I've been saying for a couple years, the economy is going to have to do some pretty hefty lifting in order to keep stocks up. Now, apparently, there are many analysts saying the same thing that I've been saying for quite some time, which I'm glad they're saying it. So, in other words, if the Fed begins to taper and earnings now is behind us, we're going to have to look real closely. We're going to have to look real closely at the economy, and is the economy in the kind of shape that can sustain any kind of continued growth in the markets? The answer is no, by the way, but that's what everybody is turning to, so that ought to be interesting as they turn towards that. Gold futures are rallying, by the way, and that's got to make a lot of people happy. I don't really care that much about it, but gold is up. Gold is at $1,330. It looks like gold, if it maintains a pace, obviously could be hitting $1,400 shortly, but it is at $1,330 right now. Silver is not only over 20, it's at 2104. Copper is up, also good news. All the agricultural commodities, with the exception of corn, are down. Wheat's down. No, it's not. Cotton is down the highest percentage. Cotton's down close to 1%. Wheat's only down about 0.30. Corn is up slightly, about 50 cents for corn. Corn is expected to continue to rise. That covers pretty much all the commodities. And gold, of course, is rallying. We're going to take your phone calls, 866-300-9298, 866-300-9298. Also, I've got a little comment from press conference, President Obama's press conference. Just a little clip that I want to expand upon a little bit. This was a press conference from Friday. So we got a little 27 seconds of that, just kind of outlining some things, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, I want to tell you who we're highlighting this week. I'm going to ask you to start dialing your phone to his office. You're listening to American Family Radio Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia. It's great to be here. 866-300-9298. If you want to queue your call up, 866-300-9298. We'll be right back.